All right, I'm here with Nick Stocking as a contact center expert and has spent over a decade in the space. He's been working with some of the top providers in the world and now is with Yellow.ai. Hi, Nick. Really nice to have you. I'm excited about our discussion today.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here and to be able to chat with you and just take a deeper dive into the world of AI today.
Okay, great. Well, before we jump in, I'm curious to know your journey, where you've been in contact center over the last decade and what brought you here.
Yeah, really. My background, gosh, I'll even go back a little bit further into I did 6 years of summer sales, so I was a crazy person, and I actually ended up selling educational study systems and books door to door for 6 summers. Did that, and that's actually how I paid my way through college. And so I always liked sales, but then I got into the software world where I just realized that there's so much more that you can do to create better efficiencies in different companies. So I worked for many SaaS companies until I eventually landed at a company called In Contact that later got acquired by NICE, but it was in the contact center space. So I was very fascinated with everything that you can do within a call center to make things more efficient, create a better customer experience. It was still in the early days. These are in, gosh, this was like 2013. And I remember starting there, trying to figure out, like how do we create a better customer experience? So I spent many, many, many years there and ended up going to another company that focuses on chatbot technology. And then from there, another company that is more of the CPaaS space or being able to kind of build a platform to be able to
Yeah.
serve customers. And eventually I found myself over here at Yellow AI because they wanted to put together a team that was really focused on the future. I had seen Yellow AI for many years and was excited to see what they had developed over the years. So I was impressed even 5 years ago when I'd gotten into more of that chatbot space and realizing what the power of this was. So this is before anybody knew about ChatGPT.
Yeah,
And
and I remember actually hearing about Yellow AI probably about 3 or 4 years ago before ChatGPT. And so, I mean, AI has been around for a very long time, but it does seem now, particularly since generative AI or agentic AI, that there are so many new companies and so many varieties constantly presenting new solutions on the market. It gets very noisy. So I guess I'd like to get a little bit of a sense about Yellow AI because you folks have been doing this. Yellow AI has been in this space and working in actual practical AI for quite a long time. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Give us a little bit of an overview of what you folks do.
yeah, so long story short, with Yellow AI, we've been around for almost a decade, so 9 years, and that was starting first with kind of just the digital chatbots and the basics, right? I somewhat cringe to think of how it was all beginning, but we are also named after though the yellow phone book, right? Some of you
Yellow
might have to
pages.
ask your parents. The yellow pages. So some of you might have to ask your parents what that is, but
I
it's where you.
I actually remember it, but my kids have no idea.
Yeah, so it was right, it was delivered on your porch, right? It just kind of appeared there, but it's what you turn to be able to find answers. And so Yellow AI was then developed as, hey, this is the place that people go to find answers to their questions. And so it started from that basic chatbot space of just rules-based information, being able to answer the basic questions. Then it later got into more of the social space. This was about 8 years ago, 8, 9 years, or 7, 8 years ago. And then they started to get into 5 years ago into the voice channel. So actually being deployed within the contact center to handle inquiries there. And now, recently it's the agentic. It's being able to have analytics and deep insights into what that customer journey looks like and being able to resolve inquiries and be able to integrate with those backend systems. So we have 1,200 customers today, 135 plus out of the box integrations and 135 plus languages that we can actually translate all of the different, if it we that we can be deployed in. And that's, we can achieve up to 90% automation within the first 30 days. So of course, just depending on the use case and how we what all we need to be integrated with, but it can provide a ton of value in a short amount of time. And that's where I see AI right now is how do we deploy this to just get the best bang for buck and to prove an ROI for the customers.
And it's really, I mean, it's not a replacement. It's a very good enhancement to the CCaaS, to the contact center as a service cloud providers out there, as I understand it. And you do integrate with basically everybody out there. You can, correct?
Yeah, so we have open APIs, but yeah, so long as the other systems out there have an open API, right, we can build an integration into that. But yeah, we have, over 135 plus out of the box integrations into some of those top CCaaS providers like Genesys and Nice and Five9 and TalkDesk and so many others out there. And so it's definitely not a replacement for that. It's meant
Oh,
to layer on top of those to be able to automate as much as possible, but then just escalate to a human if you need that and still make it easy to escalate to a human. So that way the humans can do what they do best in building those relationships and be able to spend time with customers to make sure they feel heard and make sure they answer questions that way. But there's so much that, right? Like we don't need to be, coaching agents on how to reset a password faster or better.
right.
There's so much that could be automated.
And and especially having worked in contact center as long as you have, is I mean, if you think about the agent, right? And you think about a company and creating a culture and wanting to empower your employees, right? It seems that there is a lot of turnover, attrition with agents, for all sorts of reasons, and a lot of fear. I think over the last couple of years that everybody's just going to be replaced, and I think more and more over the last year, we're seeing that it's more from a perspective of augmentation, and assistance. So if you're an agent, I imagine rather than having to deal with all of those monotonous questions or somebody who's been on hold for a very long time and getting an angry customer, first off, maybe some of that can be addressed right away. But when they do get to me and I'm an agent, maybe there are ways that AI, Yellow AI, can actually help me as an agent work as well. Is that true?
Yeah, there's really two aspects into how we help the agents. Is from the very beginning, it's taking away those repetitive inquiries that they don't really want to have to deal with in the first place, right? The mundane, the monotonous, the repetitive stuff that's just like this is all on our website, or this is something that they too know a bot could handle. So
Right.
we're taking care of all of that mundane stuff so that way they handle the stuff that truly they need to. But if that agent still needs help, let's say, right, there's a lot of turnover and they don't know the answers to questions. This is very common in the customer service space where, they're new, this is maybe a temporary job or it's something that they're doing while they're in college. And so making sure that they know the answers to questions, we can be deployed internally so that they can ask rather than saying, "Hey, let me put you on hold and get my supervisor," right? They can say, let me look that up. And they can ask the bot to then go and query all the internal documents to be able to handle, what is the answer to this question? Is this promo code still good or has it expired? What should I do if a customer asks about this? So they can get advice in real time on what's going on or, what is the best next course of action for helping their customers today. And it can be deployed in a very easy manner where they're able to ask the questions and understand what the customer is wanting and then be able to kind of put together, what is the right course of action for this specific client.
So potentially, not only making employees better, but maybe making them happier as well, which is important to giving good customer service at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
are there some industries that you can think of that lend themselves better to what your folks are doing as far as being able to get the biggest bang for the buck and really being able to kind of dive in right away and help? Or is it really kind of just all across the board?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of like where we're doing really well and where we've been deployed, has really been originally, right, e-commerce and retail. Just, there's a lot of repetitive inquiries for where is my order, right? Especially during those holiday seasons when there's shipping delays and everybody just is anxious to receive their package. So anybody that, ships an item or sells, some sort of system, something to the consumers, there's a lot of repetitive inquiries that way. So What we're seeing now, though, is there's a lot more in that banking, financial services, insurance, in the healthcare space, where they are being told they need to do more with less. They need to try to figure out how they can handle, right? They're scaling as a company. They're not able to hire as many people. So now in their call center, the wait times are just going up, right? It used to be only 5 minutes, or it used to be an instant answer. Now it's getting to be 20, 30 minutes before they can get to a human, during different times of the day, just because of those spikes and the seasonality. And so those are some of the industries that I think of that, top of mind for me, that we've been able to do really well in, and that people are starting to ask more about how can we deploy AI and leverage AI to make our jobs easier and help our customers and scale appropriately.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you what you saw as kind of one of the biggest drivers or business challenges, and it sounds to me like it's getting to customers quicker. It's just not having enough resources to accommodate all of the incoming calls and inquiries.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's there's a funny statistic out there that says that 57% of customers list being put on hold as their top frustration, which is interesting because that
Yeah,
means that whatever they've called about, that's not even
yeah,
what they're mad about anymore. Like, they
right.
forgot what they called about. They're now frustrated that you just had to put them on hold, and that, it took longer to get a hold, or to be able to actually talk to a human. And when they talk to a human, and if the human says, "Oh yeah, we knew your package was already delayed," it's like, "Well, why did you make me call in? Why weren't you proactive in letting me know you're on top of this?" Right? So it's not just about trying to deflect, contain, automate, and get away from the customer and decrease conversations with them.
Yeah,
The best way to deploy AI is to be able to make it so that you can actually increase your conversations with your customers, find better ways of reaching out to them to let them know, the status of different, the status of either their order, their status of, whatever ticket they have in today, but making sure that they know that you're on top of it, but then also making sure that any value added, like, hey, this is on sale today. We noticed you bought this before and now this is on sale, right? We thought you guys might be interested. Come on in today to get 10% off your order, or use this coupon code, and share it with your friends, and you'll get a buy one get one, or things like that. So finding ways that you can actually have more proactive outbound approaches with your customers is the way to leverage AI today too.
yeah. And I mean, this word that we've used, delighted, right? To delight your customer for years and years. And I mean, I understand that's the way the industry talks. I don't know if I've ever been delighted, or if I've even cared that much to be delighted. But to your point, is like there are some things, like when I go in and I can actually, you know, call, my cable provider because something's not working, and actually, just rather than call, just use the bot and have them restart my router or whatever. And I can do that on my own for 30 seconds. It actually solves the problem. Or not restart this, but for them to restart it on their side, and it solves the problem. I'm I mean, that's pretty awesome. I'm very happy about that. I'm happier than if I would have reached somebody. And I don't think that they would have been happy to kind of like, okay, I have to spend now 5 minutes on the call doing something that I know something, a bot could have done. That's something that comes to mind right off the bat. That made me really happy. Not because I don't want to talk to somebody. Usually people are very nice when you call the call center. Even if they're overwhelmed, it's at the end of the day, I understand that they're doing the best they can. But if I can get a bot to answer my questions, wonderful.
Yeah, and I even think of, every day now, we all use these voice assistants, and we haven't even been thinking about them as voice assistants, but it's Google, it's Siri, it's Alexa, right? We pick up our phones and we tell it to turn on the lights, or to tell us what the weather is, and to, update us on whatever is going on. And so long as it, solves that outcome for me, right? Every night, I have a 1-year-old child. So when I put him to bed, though, I'm rocking him to sleep, and I can now tell, my Google Home, to actually turn off the lights in the room, so that way, he can go to bed. And so long as it's solving that business outcome for me, right, or that, my whatever problem I have, personally going on in my life, I'm happy, right? I don't need Jeff Bezos every time I need to, or make an order on Amazon, or I need
Right.
to, do
Right.
something with Alexa. As long
Yeah.
as it solves it, I'm good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, so I'm curious, maybe we can go over a little bit of a business success story. Maybe a customer you've helped. We don't need to mention names, or we can. That's up to you. But before we jump into that discussion, I'm curious tangibly, with Yellow AI, are we talking about deploying very smart bots that hook into the knowledge management system of a company? Um, are we talking about mostly conversational AI, where I'm having a discussion actually, with an AI? I know they're an AI, but it's pretty good. It sounds like a real conversation. Or something else. Just tangibly before we jump in, because AI means so many things, and we've already mentioned generative and agentic AI. Just tangibly, what do customers get when they call in or when they reach out to contact centers that are using Yellow AI?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we can be deployed in many channels. So I'll mention one that is as a customer today that I can name. So Waste Connections, right? So they during this was a few years ago during COVID-19, right? It caused a surge in garbage disposal and an overwhelming amount of calls that were coming in there. So to prevent customer churn, and there were regulatory issues where they needed to have, an automated and scalable solution for people that were calling in. And they needed help with, hey, you missed my garbage, or hey, I need to update my billing info, things of that nature, or I need a new garbage can, things of that nature. So they actually deployed a voice AI agent, and they deployed it in WhatsApp, email, on the website as well, to be able to handle these inquiries. And we were able to automate over 25,000 calls that were coming into that call center each month. And that actually saved them over $3 million. I And that helped them to be able to just scale their organization better, to be able to make sure that they were handling the call volume, appropriately. And that made it freed up better, more time for their agents to be able to be right on the phone if somebody was still needing a human to talk to.
And what jumps out at me on that is, first off, that we're talking about back in 2020, right? 2021.
Yeah.
We're talking about a while ago, and where we getting having conversations with AI definitely was very forward. And even now, I think that I'm thinking to myself that all the companies I call, I rarely actually run into an AI. I talk to some every once in a while, but it's still not very often deployed. So, was that process like with in the deployment, or in the process of even choosing the solution? Was there some hesitance or resistance to think, okay, we're going to be deploying a conversational AI here?
So I know the biggest fear in AI in general, right, is there's people in two boats. Is they either think that you can sprinkle AI on it and it magically does everything, or they think, hey, this is, I've seen Terminator, I've seen enough movies to see, this is the end of the world. And so, right, the truth is probably a little bit more in between, meaning it's not here to displace everybody. It's made by humans to be able to make the human's life better, to be able to assist us in whatever we need to have be done. So as far as that process and implementing it, right, we want to go through and make sure that they understand what is it that you want to have automated? What are the use cases? What are these repetitive inquiries? So we can go through what's called an agentic discovery process, where if they share, call recordings or call transcripts with us, we can go through and analyze it and show them exactly what the calls are that are coming in today, what
Mm-hmm.
what the sentiment is. So what's kind of the overall feeling? Is it, negative? Is it positive? Is it or negative? Is it positive? Is it neutral? And then we can go through and cluster together what are the most commonly asked questions, and cluster those into figuring out which of these are actually going to be automatable, right? Or what's the feasibility and the complexity of automating each one of these things. So we'll go through and show them exactly, right? So here's, 20% of your call volumes is on this. 35% is actually on, where is my order, or the status updates, or this policy, or, how to, return an item, or how do I, exchange items, things of that nature. So we go through, we do that process for them so they understand, what it is that we're going to be doing for them, and how we can prove out that ROI instantly for them. And then from there, we're going to, do a demonstration, understand what their tech stack is, and actually show them, right, how this would work with their tech stack today. And then deploy it, then we go through the process of actually implementing it for them. It can take up to 8 to 12 weeks. For actually, yeah, one of our customers, that one I mentioned earlier, it was actually 4.5 weeks that we were able to get the bot up and
Wow.
running for
And,
them.
that's a very good size organization with a lot of touch points if you think about how many customers they have. I mean, I'm actually a customer of theirs in Southern Washington. So I know the process. In fact, when I had heard that you folks worked with them, I actually was doing a little bit of, I was doing a little bit of texting back and forth with the chat bot. I was actually impressed that I was able to get some things from that chat bot that I had a hard time getting, like it's like 5 months ago, from an agent, and I had to wait for a while to find a person who would actually know that information. From the chat bot, I actually got the email. I was just looking for a schedule. It was very simple. So I was like, oh, okay, that's really neat. But what also occurs to me is when you're going through this process is that a lot of times the customer doesn't necessarily understand what they're missing. They don't have that analytics, and so that's a really useful way of going through this process where you can pull out these data, analyze them, show the customer, and then they can actually prioritize based on some facts that they probably didn't have.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know of the times that I worked in a call center. I mean, all in my college years, it's a little has changed since then, but I know for the most part, in the clients that we talk to today, right? Like a lot of times, the folks that are working in a call center, and even, supervisors or those that are over it, it's not necessarily what you went to school for. And a lot of times, right, you're kind of thrown into this position where now you're handling, you're all these people are looking at you to help, like what are the answers to these questions, right? All these people call in, you try to train them as best as you can, but at the end of the day, right, sometimes it's hard to disseminate all this information with with the turnover that happens in a call center. So making sure that we understand, it's not just a gut check of, I think this is what people mostly call about. Definitively, let's go through and, based on this call volume, figure out what it is. And from there, right, we want to make sure that it's not only going to, help with those simple inquiries. We want to make sure the bot gets smarter and smarter with time to handle a little bit more complexity. So the bot can actually get trained based on what are the best agents saying, to be able to say, hey, we noticed that this is something that is a knowledge-based article that you could write based on these answers that agents are giving. Would you like to deploy that and have that written either, within your knowledge base, or actually have that train the bot so they can answer those questions in the future too. You want to have a human in the loop so that way they don't approve, like if agents are saying, hey, that promo code expired, but go ahead and just use mine, things of that nature. You don't always want to be doing that. So making sure that you train the bot appropriately and that it's always improving. And that's one of the ways that you kind of, when you look at the company for a call center manager, a lot of times they have to start thinking differently on what is the promotional path that all of these supervisors internally can have to have a better effective change on the organization, right? They know that these supervisors a lot of times could actually be escalated or be promoted to a point that they're going to be able to help with, training this, and being able to make sure that they have information out there and they keep all the information up to date so that when people call in, right, they know that they're on top of it, that the bot is able to handle those questions, and now they're scaling for the future. So instead of having to go and hire, another 20, 50, 100 people next year, not only because of turnover, but because the company is growing, instead you deploy this to be able to scale your organization appropriately and handle all of those, the rising inquiries that come every single year as the company grows and gets bigger.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the solution deployment strategies that you folks use when implementing. You said it can take between 8 to 12 weeks. And you also said that it's really a different way of thinking about things. I mean, different way from a company perspective, a management perspective. So I imagine workflow changes quite a bit. So just from a perspective of integrations, pilots, training, testing, like where to start, what's your approach? What's the general approach to moving forward, and kind of where to start, and how you do it, and how do you talk to those managers to say, hey, this is what we found as far as best practice. This, maybe we can have this kind of a discussion. How do you do it when you're talking about a really different way of thinking?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way we start out is, like I mentioned, we start off with that use case workshop. So we're trying to understand, what is it that we're trying to solve for? Is it a customer experience issue, right? Or, if it's a large organization and they have a lot of HR requests that come in. So we're currently deployed for Randstad and a few other companies that they're able to handle questions like, "Hey, what is my W-2?" Right now, we're talking in April. Everyone's thinking about this is tax season, and I need to get that done. So when these folks, I guess we can get into that story later, but they were able to turn around their time from getting the W-2 to their employees from 4 to 24 hours. They were able to shorten that down to just 5 minutes with automation.
Wow.
So but back to kind of the right, we're going through and we're trying to understand first what is it that we're solving. Right. If we need to, then we'll do that agentic discovery process and understand, right, what are the calls coming in and get a little bit more specific. But we just want to make sure what is the tech stack we're integrating with, because at the end of the day, it's not just about integrating this with the knowledge base. We want to make sure that this is integrated with that call center software so that if it does need to escalate to a human, it escalates it with context so that the agent answering it can say, "Hey, I see that you use the bot, that you already you know the status of your order, and now you have this really specific sales inquiry, and now me as a human, I'm here to help advise you going forward." So we want to make sure that we're tied into all of those systems, and that we're giving, yeah, some of those best practices of, hey, this is what some of our other customers are doing to help solve that. So we have, after we launch, we tie you together with our support team, a dedicated customer success manager, to be able to make sure that they understand exactly what are your needs. We go through all the analytics too. There's been a lot of vanity metrics in the past, about just containment, as an example, right? And it was a bad metric because it was just focused on, like you could have 100% containment and never allow the bot to talk to a human. I would argue that's a bad experience, right?
Yeah.
To just agent, agent, agent. So you want to make sure that when you pass it with context and that you make it easy to go to a human. But the focus should be on resolution. Are we actually solving, the inquiries that are coming in? So that's what we want to make sure that we're focused on, and that we're building experiences centered on minimizing customer effort. Don't make it so hard for the customers to get the answers to their questions, whether that is a human or a bot and self-service, right? Let's just make it easy for them to be able to do that. And those are the kind of the two things that we want to make sure we focus on: resolution, and then the customer effort, and minimize that, for each of those interactions coming in.
Okay. And so is it, as far as the deployment in general, you choose a direct, you find the data, you choose a direction. Is it just implemented right off the bat, kind of holistically through the whole company? Are there pilots that are done? Does it take? I'm just thinking, because I do a lot of work with healthcare, and sometimes changing user behavior is hard, right? And management behavior as well. And so I'm curious, from the human perspective, as you're deploying this, changing workflow, changing the way you're thinking about it. Integration's another thing. Knowledge, bases are another thing, but how do you go about actually, deploying where people like step back and say, wow, that was really successful, and most employees feel like, wow, this is a good, refreshing start, a new start.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do more of a crawl, walk, run approach, for customers too, right? This can be a bit of a change for how they operate. So the way that, right, like one of the first ways we can be deployed and that we find is, when talking to customer service leaders is, hey, do you have 24/7 support? And is that, every agent that has every skill and every language, do you have that kind of support? If you don't, and I would say most of them don't really have that support structure in place, deploy the bot to be able to handle those after hour questions. So that way you can figure out what is it that people are asking, right? It drives me crazy personally, right, for my dentist and for the auto mechanic shop that, when I'm done working at the end of the day and I have time to make these phone calls, I can never get a hold of them. So, having this automation in place for the after hours work, or those seasonal, the
And
spike.
and that's not changing the workflow at all. That's just adding something and probably making some happier customers when they might reach out for more clarification the next day. Or
Absolutely,
maybe
yeah.
they don't reach out at all because they get the information that they need.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I think of the crawl walk run approaches, that's what we start with, kind of the basic is what are those top inquiries? Because we want that bot to, look at after, we automate as much as possible. So let's say even just 50% of the inquiries coming in, which frees up, the agents to be able to spend more time with customers on the phone. So they're not so focused on average handle time and, just getting that customer on the phone. Instead, they can focus on first call resolution, FCR. Did I actually resolve their inquiry? Do they feel heard? Are they happy? Are they going to be, a returning customer because of this interaction? So making sure that you can automate, as much as possible, but leave the humans in there to be able to, handle those inquiries. But from there, right, then we want to figure out now what are the next, 20% of calls that are coming in that we could potentially automate and make it even more seamless. The world only gets more and more complex, right? I don't foresee it, happening. I still think we're a few years away before this is going to be, automating tons and tons in the call center, or where, a 200-seat call center goes to a 20-seat call center overnight. That's not what this is all about, right? It's being able to make it so that you can continue to grow as an organization. Maybe you don't need a full 200, but maybe, you're able to then find ways that you can actually help the customer with that journey, right? Spend more time, like I mentioned, and not push them off the phone so quickly, so that humans can still have that interaction, develop that relationship with the customer, so that they feel heard, they feel understood, and that they're taken care of.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you start talking about a year or 2 years away, kind of as we wrap up, and the fact that you've been in this industry so long, and now you're working with a company that's actually been deploying these solutions that like we're all benefiting from now, but I mean, at the moment, but the reality is they're new to all of us. They're still new to all of us. So I'm curious if you look at the last 5 years or 2 years or even 1 year, what's your feeling or sense of just like a big picture of change, and how are customers now reacting to that? Are we settling in? Are we still feel like it's all hype, or where do you see us in accepting AI, where AI actually is compared to where it was a year ago? Curious, just general overview.
And I'll even take it to when I think of, yeah, where it came from and how it was chatbot, voice bots is what we said. Today, right now, it is AI agents. And the difference between the two of those, I was actually chatting with one of my counterparts for the East here, Brian Walters, and he gives the following analogy of, a chatbot's like a vending machine. It gives you something, from a limited menu. And if you push the right button, right? But an AI agent is really more like a smart assistant. It's going to give you something, that it's actually going to listen. It's going to understand what you need and goes out to get it done, and possibly talking to other systems or people along the way in order to do that. So that's what is happening now. Companies are deploying this, right? They deployed something maybe a year or two ago, and it could only answer, where is my order? And the answer to that was, you can expect it within 3 to 5 business days. It's static. It's not saying,
Right.
where is my order as a consumer? It's saying, here's the general answer. So now people are expecting a personalized response based on, their past interactions with this company. Um, and that's what is expected today. That is table stakes today, right? That was cool 2 years ago. It's table stakes today. The future and where this is going is agentic, meaning that this is going to be, it's going to have an AI agent that has agents underneath it that are specialized and trained. So now you have an army of, agents. So now that's more like a personal assistant. That's a personal shopper that, on the weekends, my wife and I, we hit up, it's the local grocery store, Costco, Walmart, right? We call it the trifecta, right? A lot of times it's that path.
Oh,
But
yeah,
imagine being able to have an agent that then goes to those stores for you.
yeah,
Like today we do have, the groceries delivered to our door, and
yeah.
expectations are rising there, but sometimes you still want to go in person. So, every once in a while we still have that experience, but that's where it's going, is this agentic AI that is truly going to have a specialized function, and to be able to have an army of bots underneath it that help to accomplish that task and are fully integrated with the existing tech stack to make this a seamless experience and reduce that customer effort to resolve inquiries.
All right. Well, that's great, and I honestly feel like you're in the best place you can be in these times, man. I mean, I really think that you've got a great company, and at the same time, you get a chance to be in something that's interesting. You're learning all the time. I know that's what you like to do, and I thank you very much for your time today, Nick.
Yeah, always a pleasure, and thanks so much for inviting me up here. And I look forward to yeah, maybe chatting more in the future. And if anybody's interested in hearing more about Yellow AI, you can reach out to Misha and he can set up a time to chat. But Misha is great to be able to lean on for all of his expertise too. So I've seen your videos, I've seen you talk to people in the past too. So Misha has a great pulse on what's going on today in the IT world and how companies are functioning, and really making sure that you're not just buying something, but you're actually solving for that business outcome you're looking to produce. So lean on Misha for his expertise, and be sure to reach out to him for any questions that you have in that IT space. But yeah, thank you for inviting me here, and I look forward
Absolutely.
to future conversations.
All right. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Sounds good.